Team Awesome is back!
That's right, Team Awesome is back in time for another episode of Tangled Talk. Welcome, welcome everyone. This is our very last podcast for this first bomb of Season 3. I say first bomb not knowing what they have in store for us, but assuming that the other half will also be released in bomb format. But I don't know. Sure, it's just my assumption. So, first bomb. And boy, are we thankful that this is our last podcast for this bomb, because it's not that we don't love talking about Tangled. Obviously we do, or we wouldn't have this podcast in the first place. But this bomb format sucks.
Yeah.
It's awful and we're exhausted. And we love you guys and we appreciate you sticking with us and like encouraging us and giving us feedback, and we love all of that, because otherwise it'd be like, why would we do this? We've done this 5 times in 2 weeks. This is crazy. So because of that 5 times in 2 weeks, we're also going to be on a brief hiatus. We don't know exactly how long it's going to be. We don't know exactly when we're going to start up again, but we need a breather, so we're taking it. So before we get into the episodes today is going to be Day of the Animals and Be Very Afraid. But before we get into that, I want to remind everybody that Eugene Appreciation Week starts on October 28th. So it's time to show our best boy some love, because he needs it. He really, really needs it. So, first episode of the podcast is going to be Day of the Animals. This was a fun episode. I'm going to just say right now that, guys, you watch these 2 episodes back to back and they're so completely tonally different that, like, it makes your head spin. It's crazy. So Day of the Animals is directed by Tom Caulfield. It's written by Kelly Hannon, and the storyboards are by Adrian Barrios, David Prince, and Janessa Warren. So we begin the whole episode with Hamuel flying around carrying his skull.
Yay! I was so happy that it started with him. I was
I know.
oh, this is gonna be a good episode. I'm gonna enjoy this one.
I watched it before Ellie did, and I immediately texted her, okay, we're 3 seconds in and you're gonna love this episode.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I bet it starts with Hammy or Eugene doing something amazing.
Yep.
That's how I was okay with Eugene not being in this episode. I'm like, but there's Hamuel.
Exactly.
Hamuel, yeah.
I still get my Dark Kingdom representation.
So, Hamuel is flying around carrying Pascal upside down, except Pascal is the one who's upside down. It's Hamuel! The whole scene flips around and we see that Hamuel is flying upside down, carrying Pascal above him by the feet. So, because he is flying upside down, he runs directly into Max's face, and Max throws Pascal and Hamuel backwards, landing them in the cart that he is pulling. Said cart is being driven by Rapunzel, and she is joined by Catalina, Kiera, and Varian. They're headed to Nazernia to return the last of Catalina and Kiera's stolen goods to officially put their thieving days behind them. Good for them. I think that's actually really cool that they addressed that. That, like, this season is also about anybody who's done villainous things and how Reformed is making up for that. And so, like, they're showing that this is a running theme in this. Okay. So, Varian has joined the 3 ladies on this journey to purchase some alchemical things from Nazernian Market. His little rave about alchemy greatly annoys Kiera, who asks if anybody would like to switch seats with her. But Rapunzel is happy to have Varian with them, and she's also hoping that since Rudiger has joined them as well, that he and Max may finally be able to become friends. And I like to remind people that Max and Rudiger's rivalry goes all the way back to What the Hair, all the way back to like the first they ever interact. Max is stuck in the goo, and Rudiger is climbing him to get to the apple that Max had been going after, and then he eats the apple and throws the apple core at Max's head. So this has been going on since the very beginning. It's not a season 3 thing only. This is just the first time they've taken the opportunity to really explore it, which makes me want to go back and watch Secret of the Sun Drop and see if Monster Rudiger does anything particularly mean to Max while he's running around. So Max spots an apple. Speaking of apples, Max spots an apple, but so does Rudiger, and he scampers up the tree to grab it, shoving a pine cone in Max's mouth while he steals the apple from him. He taunts Max with the apple, but Pascal tries to calm Max down with the movie reference, the whole, calm down with the hands thing. But sadly, to no avail. As Max and Rudiger begin to fight, the cart gets jostled, and a shell necklace falls out of one of the sacks of treasure into the back of the cart. Strangely though, Catalina doesn't remember stealing the necklace, and neither does Kiera. As they discuss the loot, Varian suggests that they stow it for the time being, it being the loot, not stop talking. Not
He's like, shut up!
I mean, quiet! We know he's good at that,
Yeah.
Varian suggests that they stow it for the time being, as they are approaching Dead Man's Curve, a hotbed of thievery. But Kiera tells Varian not to worry. Real thieves still steer clear of this area. It's mostly for hacks and knuckleheads. Varian hides behind Rapunzel's hair, which is adorable. and Kiera calls Varian V, which is also adorable.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, that's like Varian's first actual nickname. That's
So
adorable.
cute.
It's great. Just then, a thief jumps down from the trees and asks for their goods, but it's just Dwayne. Y'all remember Dwayne? He first showed up in Max's Enemy. He's the one who joined forces with Lady Kane and Axel, and he's incompetent, and he has been incompetent since the very first time we ever saw him. Now it's no exception.
Wait. Well, I
What?
mean, he gets named in that one, but I think the first time he shows up is Fitzherbert P.I. Because he's the
still
thief that
incompetent.
Mm.
catches. I know. I'm just saying.
You're absolutely right that the first time he shows up is Fitzherbert P.I. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. So anyway, but Dwayne's been around. We've seen Dwayne a couple times. He also like briefly shows his face in Varderos, which is why he wasn't on the prison barge, because he had broken out of jail again or something, or maybe they let him go on account of being a horse's accomplice. Who even knows? God. Like, well, we can't blame you for breaking out of jail, but a horse knocked the wall down, you know? God only knows with Corona law. So Rapunzel asks him what they talked about the last time he was caught stealing, and he responds, "Don't do it," and promises to never steal again. He then leaves, stating that he'll go find an honest job, and we all believe him. Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
After that, Rudiger tries to sneakily steal the apple from Maximus' saddlebag once more, but he's caught by the horse, who starts chasing him around the forest, rocking the cart about. Rudiger taunts Max on top of a tree, but Pascal steals the apple back from Max. And as he goes to take it to his friend, though, he trips over Hamuel, who's just laying there on his back on a tree branch.
I loved that.
You just
He
jealous.
was just like, I'm here.
And Pascal lands on Max's back with Rudiger in tow. Max spins, making the cart spin around, and the apple flies off, landing farther away. Hamuel, being the helpful best boy that he is, uses the shell necklace to impale the apple and bring it towards him. And the other animals go in to grab it. But Rapunzel has had enough of this. She tells them that they need to just
This is-
shake hands and get along. I mean, shake
This is
hoof and
season
tail.
3 Rapunzel. She don't give
She's
no
over
cares anymore. She's
Yep,
like,
she's-
all right, if you don't stop fighting, I'm gonna murder you all. The season 3 Rapunzel promise.
With a smile on her face.
Yep.
So she tells them to just shake hands and get along. I mean, shake hoof and tail, or beak and paw. Is that what raccoons have, paws? And then, like, Rudiger's, like, flexing his little paws. And he's trying to, like, it's so
He like,
cute.
looks at him and he's like, wait, wait.
He's like, oh, what are they called?
Little trash
Hands? I
panda.
always call them raccoon hands.
So cute.
But Hamuel, being Hamuel, tries to pry the necklace from the apple, and as Rudiger tries to take the apple from him, the magic of the necklace activates and sucks Rapunzel, Varian, and the girls inside. The animals are confused, but continue to fight over the apple, and a chase ensues. On that, the one that leads Max to getting his head stuck in a tree, like there's like a forked branch, and he like gets his jaw stuck inside the fork. And the cart goes careening off away, and the necklace is left with Hamuel. And we cut to inside the necklace, which really reminded me like of a genie bottle immediately.
Mhm.
It's like,
Yeah, I was like,
pillows. At first, I was like, "Is this some weird genie talisman with no genie in it? This is the strangest
Yeah.
thing I've ever seen." And
I feel like it's probably an I Dream of Jeannie reference because I
feel like
feel like there's definitely people on the crew who are old enough to have watched that show.
well, yeah, because like I'm old enough to have watched it, not when it was new, but it plays reruns when I was a kid.
Well, yeah. One of
Absolutely. I
those.
mean, and if not like a specific reference, they could have like used it as reference. Like this isn't meant to
Mhm.
be I Dream of Jeannie, but we looked at I Dream of Jeannie for ideas, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's like it's got couches and lots of cushions and all this purple drapery, and it's got a mirror, and so it's not like it looks like a terrible place to live, but it is inside a seashell necklace. And I saw this pointed out by Beth, you know, have you heard of that hair show? And I really love this concept that it is a seashell and it is a prison. And the last time we faced something that was a seashell and a prison, it was Matthews.
Mhm.
Wee woo, Matthews alert!
So like,
Hope he comes
I
back.
hope
Love
this is
that
referenced
too.
again. I hope this shell is actually his somehow and
Yeah.
not just this random thing that we like never hear from again, because like the chance for it to be linked to him is so there, you
Mhm.
know?
And for it to like randomly appear out of nowhere, I'm
Yeah,
like, that's so very Matthews.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
that's
like,
his
like,
MO.
Nobody knew where that thing came from, and so it would be absolutely within storytelling capability for this to actually be linked to Matthews somehow.
Mhm.
So,
Please
inside the
bring Matthews
necklace,
back.
bring back Gavin. Bring
Yes.
back Gavin.
Mm-hmm.
So inside the necklace, The group realize that they've been magically shrunk down, and now they need to find a way out. Rapunzel remarks that they've been in much worse situations than this. Definitely not weirder, but worse. Kiera becomes upset and asks, what have I done to deserve this? To which Varian reminds her, didn't you steal from, dozens of people? And she goes, all right, we're doomed. And throws the weapon. So he catches it, and he goes to throw it back in retaliation, but Rapunzel, just being the mom friend, takes it from him, and it earns her a glare. Which, I don't blame her at this exact moment.
Yeah. But
fights when we're not trying to figure things out.
I loved his little glare. I was like, oh, there he is. There's little Varian. He's back. For a hot second.
I think somebody made a great little screen cap thing where they're like, you're 2 seconds from giving up on your redemption.
Yeah.
That's the running gag with Varian. Like, every time he glares at somebody, he was like, he's giving up the redemption.
Y'all better watch out.
Wee woo. Bad boy's coming back.
So while Rapunzel ensures them that the other animals will surely save them, we see Max stuck in a tree, and Hamuel gets stuck in the tree also by flying into it and getting his head caught in the little fork in the branches.
He's such a
Hammy.
And Rutger looks on and laughs at them.
Hammy just wants to be part of the group.
Right.
He just wants to be
Does.
included.
He does. He keeps following them around and doing stuff. He's so
Yeah.
great. I love
He's like, can I join you? Oh my god, he's just me. He's just the friend who's like, hey, can I join you on things? And they're like, sure,
Well, we're gonna
I
get-
guess.
Are
Why?
you just fun? So Dwayne returns asking for a lift back to Corona, but instead he stumbles upon the necklace and takes it with him. So this episode, all of a sudden we are very aware that this episode is actually going to focus on Dwayne.
Mhm.
And this was something unexpected, and I never knew I needed it. But I totally needed it because Dwayne is delightful.
Yep.
I can't even with this dude. He is so funny, and he's so well animated in this episode.
Oh my gosh,
Like,
right?
Yes.
It's so great. I love it. It's fantastic. So
I was
Max,
like, are those some prime Tom Caulfield boards
yeah.
there?
Right.
Oh, wow.
you can always tell Tom's boards. They're so obvious, and it's so great. So Max frees himself, and he notices that the necklace has vanished. He and Rutger both begin sniffing out a trail in opposite directions because there are 2 sets of boot prints, and both are sure that their way is correct. Max and Pascal head down the trail Max sniffed out, and Rutger begrudgingly follows them. Elsewhere, Dwayne is proud of himself for swiping the necklace from the animals and states that he hates animals. And just then, a vulture swoops down from a branch and presses its face into his. He backs away terrified until the bird squawks at him and he runs off.
I was like, oh, hello, random vulture. What are you doing here?
Inside the necklace, the group have stacked themselves to get a look out of the gem, and Catalina discovers that they are not only moving, but they aren't being carried by Max, but Dwayne. And as Dwayne hops on a raft, Catalina attempts to break out of the necklace, like she's just going to dislodge the gem. As the animals are following Dwayne's suspected trail, they discover that it was not Dwayne's path, but instead one crafted by Hamuel, who is once again stuck in a boot.
I love you, Hammy. I was like, of course it's Hammy.
I don't know what's up with that bird, but literally going into boots is his hobby.
He loves
he's not
it.
even stuck or lost. It's just what he loves. He's like a cat with a box.
Yeah.
He
That's
gets in
what I
boots.
should do with all of the crows I got for Halloween. Just put
Yes.
them in various different shoes.
Oh my gosh.
Like when my guests arrive, I'll be like, "Oh, please take off your shoes," and they'll
Come
be
back
like,
with
"Okay," and then I'll just shove it full of birds.
Bex and I were talking once about Eugene-inspired tattoos, and we were like, just get a crow and put him in a boot. That's a Eugene-inspired tattoo.
Yes, it is. Oh, don't tempt me.
Rutger, it turns out, was right in the first place about which tracks to follow. While he and Max argue, Pascal scampers to the river and sees Dwayne floating by on a raft. The animals begin to chase after him, but are eventually stopped by a fork in the the fork in the river, but they are determined. Back inside the necklace, Catalina finally gets the gem loose and attempts to climb out, but her hand returns to its normal size upon exiting the shell, and seeing her wiggling fingers coming out of the necklace spooks Dwayne. As they fall back to the base of the necklace, Varian discovers a plaque written in some sort of ancient chirography, Minotian perhaps, or ancient Sapporian, until Rapunzel points out that he's looking at it upside down.
I love her little lean on his head. She's like, Varian, it's upside down. He's like,
They're
oh.
so, siblings. All 4 of them are siblings in this episode, and it's so great. I mean, and that's one thing that, they're doing this season that they hadn't done before, is they're just exploring what if we stick these characters together? How do they interact with each other?
Yeah.
And I love that, and I honestly, I thank some of the entertainment of the third season to the fact that it has such an expanded cast now. Because like you're stuck with like 5 characters, it gets a little stale. And they're like, here, have 17 characters. Like, oh, that's better. Yeah. Finally, stories. Good. Excellent. The plot tells them that they are prisoners of the shell and that the only way to get free is to drop it in the ocean. Catalina wants to know how they're supposed to do that while they're stuck in the shell, and Kiera reiterates that they're doomed. But Rapunzel reminds them that their animal friends are still looking for them. Max is the best tracker in all of Corona. Pascal is really, really smart. Rudiger can be surprisingly resourceful. But no one has anything nice to say about Hammy.
It was so rude.
I texted Bex. I was like, they're disrespecting Hammy in my house? No.
Right?
No, unacceptable.
Asked the other day that was like, I can't believe that like they didn't have anything nice to say about Hammy. I'm like, wait until you hear the podcast.
I have a million nice things to say about
He's
Hammy.
a good boy.
He is the best boy. And if Edmund had been there, he would have been furious. How could anyone disrespect his best friend like that? So rude.
If nothing else, though, they could have at least like noted that he never gives up, which he doesn't ever give up. And he's also gifted with dumb luck. Like, seriously, that bird's got the greatest dumb luck ever. He's got the worst stats, but he rolls 20s all the time. So back outside the shell, Max is racing along the riverbank, keeping pace with Dwayne's raft. And Dwayne is completely oblivious to the fact that he's being chased by a horse being ridden by a chameleon, a raccoon, and a crow. Like, they have been following him for God knows how long, and he's completely unaware of it. Completely. This is Dwayne, people. So Max spots a vine and he grabs it, tossing one end with Rudiger and Pascal to the other side of the river. They're going to pull it tight and get the unsuspecting Dwayne to get caught on it so that they can stop him. Unfortunately, a raccoon and chameleon don't weigh anything close to what a horse weighs, and Rudiger and Pascal are dragged into the river behind the raft. Irritated, they climb out on the opposite bank as Max. Evening has fallen and Dwayne is making camp, singing a celebratory song about how he stole from the princess. Inside the shell, it seems Rapunzel and the kids have been searching everywhere for a door, a hidden compartment, a secret chamber, anything, but they are completely trapped here. They are, however, finding the remains of a pirate's parrot, and Catalina uses the skull as a ventriloquist dummy to amuse Varian. Just then, Rapunzel realizes that they can hear Dwayne singing from inside the shell, which means that if they can amplify their voices, he should be able to hear them. Using an empty vase as a resonating chamber, she begins calling out to Dwayne, who is completely freaked out by the disembodied voices.
This whole scene was just superb.
This is the scene also where the animation of Dwayne in this scene is just like, it's so great. And he's waving his sausage on a stick around and he's talking to the voices in some freaking, it's really good animation. So like Mercury's just killing it this season. And like every episode has at least one moment of this really good animation.
Yeah.
So Rapunzel tells Dwayne that she is the voice of his subconscious. He doesn't know what that is, and he keeps looking at his sausage as though he thinks that's what's talking to him.
Oh my god.
It's amazing. Like, he even holds it up to his ear at one point, and he, like, looks directly at it while he's talking. He thinks it's the sausage. So she tells him that he needs to drop the pendant into the sea and that it's magic and will grow to 10 times its size and be worth so much more if he does, but he doesn't sound convinced. It might be some time for some reverse psychology. I don't think forward psychology is working on this dimwit. So Rapunzel tells him that if he doesn't do it, then the lucky crook he sells it to will, and then be the one to get rich. This convinces Dwayne, who calls this hypothetical third party a backstabber and accuses them of double-crossing him. Because he's Dwayne. I love him so much.
And people say Hammy's the stupid one.
I think Hammy was like, just ran into too many walls, you know? Like, he was probably a smart crow at one point in his life.
But
like,
maybe, well, as I said before, I think probably the Flynn Rider and the Lost Treasure of Scotia probably got dropped on his head when Eugene accidentally dropped it off. I was like, how do you drop it off a cliff, you idiot?
He's reading at a cliff's edge, right? And he reads something that gets him really excited, and he exclaims and like flings his arms up in joy and drops it.
That's exactly what he did. Oh my god.
And he just seems to be like, oh man!
But it hits Hammy on the way down, and that's why Hammy's the way he is.
Way to go, Eugene.
Good job, Eugene. You don't get to complain about him ever again. The animals are still following Dwayne, and they follow him all the way to the edge of a cliff, where Dwayne takes off the necklace, preparing to drop it into the ocean below. Knowing that their friends are in the shell, but not that dropping it in the ocean will free them, Max comes up with a plan to get the shell back. In the dirt he draws that he will swing from a tree and kick Dwayne over the cliff, grabbing the shell in the process, while Rudiger and Pascal cheer him on. Disagreeing with his plan, Rudiger wipes that part of the drawing and draws in that he will simply stomp Dwayne to death and steal the shell.
I was like, Rudiger!
Straight up murder. He's
You
the
are
murderer.
a baby. And also, I love that you went to murder right away.
Straight to murder.
Sounds like a me move.
Pascal draws in the dirt an annoyed self-portrait, looking stern with his arms crossed, which turns out to be exactly the way he is standing at that moment. Pascal and Rudiger go after Dwayne while Max continues to try to think of a plan, but Hamuel alerts Max to the other two. Just as Dwayne is about to drop the shell, Pascal climbs up his leg, turning invisible because that's a thing he can do. He's not just like blending in anymore. He's just straight up turning invisible.
Right.
Yeah. Pascal's like, where am I? Nowhere.
I'm pretty sure in Rapunzel's Return, when Rapunzel and Pascal were sneaking into the castle, and you saw like all the shadows on the walls, I'm pretty sure Pascal was invisible, but he still cast a shadow, and I thought that was kind of a cool effect. He turns invisible again and peers into the gem window, and Rapunzel tells him to be careful, and he goes invisible again. Confused that she called him Pascal, Dwayne pulls the shell back from the cliff's edge and tells it that he's beginning to think that he's not talking to my that thing you said. Still doesn't know what a subconscious is.
Amazing.
Pascal reveals himself once more, and Dwayne freaks, trying to toss him off the pendant without letting go of it himself. He manages to throw Pascal, so Rudiger attacks. But then he throws off Rudiger too. Now Max is charging at him, and rather than fight, Dwayne hops down jutting rock spurs on the cliff face where Max can't follow. Max runs a long way down looking for Dwayne, who is hiding behind a tree stump on the ground. But it turns out that the vulture from before is watching the whole thing. Rudiger and Pascal roll out of nowhere, presumably having rolled down the cliff to get there faster, and run into Max, so Dwayne uses the distraction to run the other way. While declaring that no dumb animal was ever going to catch him, Dwayne is suddenly picked up by the shoulders by the vulture. Or is it like supposed to be a condor? Because it's awfully big and it lives on a cliff face, so I'm also wondering if it's supposed to be a condor, not a vulture.
It's
But whatever.
entirely possible.
It's a bald-headed cartoon bird. That's what it is. Rapunzel and crew are witnessing the liftoff from the gem window in the shell. They did not expect this. The animals argue about whose fault it was and then go their separate ways, each stalking off in a different direction. And then Hamuel swoops in and lands face first in the dirt at the center of where they were where the others just were. It begins to rain, and alone, Max looks sadly at his bedraggled reflection in the puddle, then trudges on. Rudiger climbs an apple tree, and the water sliding off an apple gathers in the shape of a horse. He hides his eyes under his tail. Huddled under a leaf umbrella, Pascal sits by a tiny campfire until water dripping off the leaf extinguishes it. He turns blue with sadness. And Hammy, sweet Hammy, is staring up at the sky, his beak open until he's just a squishy water balloon crow as the rain clears.
Oh my god, I couldn't even. I was like, Hammy!
I was dying.
Also, that's such a, like, that's something I would have done as a small child. Just laid out in the rain with my mouth open. Like, I'm gonna drink a bunch of water now. Hammy's just me.
We had, like, lots of opportunity to do that.
Yeah. Also, I'm surrounded by crows at all times. It's amazing.
In the bird's nest, Dwayne begs the mama bird and her 5 chicks not to eat him. I'm probably all gristle, but the mama bird has other plans. It turns out she thinks Dwayne is one of her chicks.
I love that. I'm like, how?
Asshole. I guess she thinks the hood is a bald head. I don't know.
Oh, probably.
The shell necklace is hanging from a little scrub branch just behind the nest, and Kiera comments that they can officially count the animals out, but Rapunzel tells her that they can never give up hope on their friends. Max is a top-notch guard. He just needs to learn that he has to listen as well as give orders. He just has to learn how to play well with others. They all do. Each one of those guys has something special about them. As she says this, we see Max gazing sadly into the river, then laying down. But he sits up when he notices that beavers working together to repair their dam and smiles, realizing that teamwork is the answer. Pascal may be small, but he's mighty and also adorable. We see Pascal still blue and shivering slightly, but he looks up when he hears Max whinny and sees him come leaping joyfully out of the brush. Max licks Pascal, who turns green again, and he wags his horsey tail, and then the two join up to go find the others. And Rudiger's cunning and loyal. Rudiger's asleep in the tree, hanging upside down by his tail, which raccoons don't do, and usually cartoons claim that opossums are the ones that do that, and they can't do it either, but whatever, man. He hears Max coming, and he wakes up and then climbs under the branch. Max charges up and knocks his head against the trunk, knocking 2 apples loose, which Rudiger catches. Pascal waves, and Rudiger jumps down onto Max's back. He offers him one of the apples, and the horse and raccoon toast with them before taking off again. If they could just come together, they would be unstoppable. But again, no nice words about Hammy, Rapunzel.
Mhm.
Rapunzel
Rude.
is on my list. How dare she? How dare she be so mean to Hammy? Hammy would have been Eugene's Pascal if he had grown up in the Dark Kingdom, and to see her disrespect Hammy this way upsets me greatly.
You know, it's really rare for Rapunzel to be on any of our lists. It
Mhm.
really is. The last time Rapunzel was on a list, it was when, like, we'd only heard everything I ever thought I knew, and we didn't know who had hurt Eugene.
We were like,
I'm
did
like,
you hurt him?
Oh, seriously? Am I mad at Rapunzel?
And then we were like, oh, you
remember
hurt
that.
you,
That was-
Eugene. You
And they're
fool.
like, oh, you hurt Eugene, you doofus.
He's a
Okay,
dumbo,
awesome.
but love him.
So Catalina wonders how the animals could find them up on the cliff face, even if they were together, and Rapunzel begins to concoct a plan, taking into account that when Catalina stuck her hand beyond the gem, it grew back to its normal size. Working together, the animals are hot on the trail. Rapunzel's idea is to make the lanterns out of the shell's interior drapery and some of Varian's chemicals, and when the lanterns rise out of the shell prison, the chemicals combine and they explode into fireworks, signaling the animals where they are. Using his hand binoculars, which he can apparently zoom in with and also let other people use,
Amazing.
Rudiger spalts the shell by the nest, and the animals gallop in and begin to make a new plan, this time using teamwork. Max will fell a dead tree and use it as a seesaw-style catapult to launch Rudiger and Pascal up to the nest. Rudiger makes a small adjustment, but it's actually a logical one that doesn't discount the whole rest of the plan, and Max agrees with the change. The best movie callback yet.
Oh my god, it was so good.
As a Pascal and Rudiger are getting ready to get launched, Pascal, and this is all guys, before the series ever even started, I wanted an episode that focused on the animals and was short on the dialogue, and this is exactly what this episode gave me. So I was thrilled at how much of it was gesture and expression, and in this moment was fantastic. So Rudiger and Pascal are on the end of the log, and they pantomime and chitter their Pascal and Rudiger version of head down, arms in, knees apart, knees apart. And then, as Max whinnies and jumps down onto the bridge, he makes the exact same hoop-pa, in the same case. He falls, and it was amazing. And the movie best one the show has done.
So
And it worked.
good.
Rudiger and Pascal make a perfect landing right by the necklace, but they see that Dwayne is absolutely covered in adoring bird family. You gotta help me, burglar cat! He cries.
Burglar cat. Oh my god.
Burglar cat's the best. That might even be better than Trash Panda.
Yeah.
Wanting to protect your chicks, Mama Bird scares Rudiger, and he topples backwards off the cliff. But Hemi, who is not useless, thank you very much,
Oh my god.
carrying him the same way he was carrying Pascal at the beginning of the episode.
I just love that part because Varian sees this and he's like, Rudiger! I'm like,
Yeah.
oh. But then Hammy comes in for the save and I'm like, see, that's what you get for just whistling earlier. You doubted Hammy, but he saved your best friend.
Man. So Rudiger and Hemi will get Mama Bird to chase them. Oh no, still doomed. That was a great line. It's so subtle and so in the background. Hemi and Rudiger fly off and Varian goes, oh no, still doomed. Oh my god, I want to season 3, the number of times people have said doomed just in season 3 is already extreme.
It's got to be at least 10 times now.
Yes, it really does. But Pascal, who has curled up and disguised himself as a rock, retrieves the necklace, and Rapunzel realizes that the chase was part of the plan. But they still have to deal with Dwayne, who was reaching for the necklace and being restrained by his 5 bird siblings. His pants rip and he falls forward, knocking Pascal and the necklace off the cliff. Hemul and Rudiger try to save him, but the Mama Bird is incoming and they have to veer out of the way. Just as it looks like Pascal and the shell are going to hit the rocks below, Pascal stops falling. It turns out that Rapunzel has unfurled her hair out of the gem window and snagged it on a rock spur on the way down. And I gotta wonder, what does 70 feet of hair attached to a 3-centimeter body feel like? I mean, comparatively, how long is her hair now? This is crazy. It's 70 feet when she's like 5 feet tall. So how many hundreds of feet, how many miles of hair does she have when she's 3 centimeters tall and it's 70 feet of feet? I mean 70 feet of hair. 70 feet of feet. Oh, goodness gracious. But the mama bird is still chasing Rudiger and Hamuel with no end in sight. Max gets another idea, and he and Pascal signal them to fly into the dead tree they'd use as the catapult. The bird chases them in, but once Hammy and Rudiger are clear, Max kicks the log and rotates it against the cliff face, into which the mama bird flies, incapacitating her. Groggy, she flies off, looking loopy, but probably no worse for wear. The animals bring the shell down to the sea, and in a swirls of golden magic, the humans are released from their prison at last. So it looks like it's a happy ending for everyone, except for Dwayne, who is still in the nest being fed worms by Mama Bird.
Sorry, Dwayne.
That was such a good episode.
It really was.
I cannot, there's at least 3 episodes this season so far that I would call unexpectedly delightful, and this is one of them.
Yeah.
Just kept happening. They kept being like, well, I don't know if I'm going to like this episode. Oh, it turns out I love that episode. So, and it keeps happening. You're season 3. You're allowed to keep doing that. You're allowed to keep delivering and making me not dislike any single episode that exists. That'd be great.
Please don't kill Edmund, or I will undoubtedly dislike that episode. I don't care what else happens. If you kill my Fitz dad, I will hate that episode forever.
I hope he comes back soon. I miss Eddie boy.
I miss him. It was so funny. I was like, I'm not having Edmund withdrawals. It's all good. He could come back in any of these episodes. And then, right after Be Very Afraid ended, I was like, oh God, I miss him so much. And now we're on hiatus, so I don't know when I'm going to see him again. That was very sad.
So, now on to Be Very Afraid. It is directed by Philip Pignotti, written by Jeremy Shipp, storyboards by Kate Ritter and Wendy Sullivan. We open with Cassandra practicing controlling the rocks, but she's struggling. It takes a lot of effort, and she can't seem to do very much. Enchanted Girl tells her that she will learn to control it. But Cassandra isn't so sure. She thought that by taking the Moonstone, her destiny would become clear, but now she's wondering if she even has a destiny, which is a really interesting concept that she literally grabbed this thing not knowing what she was going to do with it.
Yeah.
Now
Dummy.
I'm finding out that she didn't have a plan, and I'm like, Cassandra didn't have a plan? She just went for it? What the hell?
The little blue girl was like, gank the Moonstone. She's like, okay, and then what? And she's like, just take the Moonstone, and then you'll figure it out. And she's like, okay, and then she takes it, and she's like, and now what? And the little blue girl's like, I don't know, you're supposed to figure that out on your own. She's like, damn it!
Now what? Now you have a destiny. And what is that destiny? Figure it out! I don't know.
Shrug.
So, the Enchanted Girl tells her that her destiny is to destroy Rapunzel. Cassandra is shocked by this and doesn't look at all like she's certain that that's right. As she hesitates on the news, glowing red rocks suddenly spring up around, leading away from her. Enchanted Girl tells her that she's connected to the rocks and that they respond to her feelings, even fear.
I was like, when the little girl was like, you have to destroy Rapunzel, I was like, wait, what now?
I was like,
sorry,
ooh.
I was like, sorry, Enchanted Girl has started stepping up her game of instructions. First she's just being kind of vague, and now she's being like, kill Rapunzel.
Yeah, she's like, take the stone, now murder her.
Yeah, exactly. She went 0 to 100 real quick.
I'm going to say that, honestly, this is the point at which I started being like, okay, that's not the spirit of the Moonstone, and she is directly connected to Zontiri, no doubt. Because what has Zontiri wanted since, they were trying to destroy Corona in the first place? It's always had this Corona Sun Drop grudge. So, seriously, I am no longer at all convinced that it's the spirit of the Moonstone.
Yeah.
I'm just like, nope.
But I'm like, this little blue girl is on Disney's bad side because they're like, wait, you want to kill one of our Disney princesses? How will we keep our brand together?
And then I'm over here like, yes, do it. Get her.
Yes!
Bring her back, but get her.
He's super sad Eugene, and he might... Maybe that's when Zach cries.
Okay.
Oh God. I don't want to think about it.
Rapunzel, kill Rapunzel.
Looks like I'm on the blue girl's side right now. I don't know.
And I honestly think it's really funny how much the fandom hates her. The fandom loves to hate the blue girl. It's fantastic.
I feel like in the first episode we didn't hate her that much, but then there's more episodes when people were like, "Oh, she's gonna die."
It's fantastic. It doesn't matter what the fandom agrees or disagrees about. Like, everybody's like, destroy Blue Girl.
I was going to say,
get
I've
her
never
out of
seen
here.
us come together as much as I have with this Blue Girl and the hatred we feel towards her.
Yep, I love it.
Threatening
It's
our
great.
girl. She made our other girl go bad. She's
Yep.
the work. She showed us Gothel being Cass's mom, which, you know.
Put her at the top of the list right there.
Yeah.
That reminds me that this ask I got the other day, like yesterday, I think, where somebody asked me if I really thought Cassandra was going to try to kill Rapunzel because, like, that seems really, like, unlikely. And I'm like, Gothel being her mom seemed really unlikely, but here we are, so.
So, bye, Rapunzel.
Oh my god. If Cass kills Eugene, I'm gonna be like, what is wrong with this family? Can you leave him alone? You're not allowed to stab my boy.
Okay, let's see. Let's look at it this way. Gothel stabs him.
Oh.
Yep, the captain almost hangs him. The captain was straight up ready to hang him.
God, you're right.
Oh no, bye, Eugene.
The family who has not tried to kill him is Shorty.
Nope.
That's what I was gonna say.
But how many times has Shorty put them in a predicament that he could have died?
Shorty has almost actually killed him probably several times. Okay, on with the show. In his bedroom, Varian is trying to decipher the complete scroll, which I think is kind of cool that Rapunzel's just like, here, figure this out.
He put a bunch of nails in it. I was like, Varian, that's a very important scroll.
I know.
It's a bunch of nails in it.
Don't put pins in it. Oh my god.
Also, I just love that, she already trusts him this much. I'm like, yay!
And she's just
Snaps
like,
and claps.
okay. She's like, okay, I'm over everything that happened. Here you go. Figure this out. So he's wondering out loud what it means, and he's talking to the non-present Demanitus, which is adorable. What does it mean, Demanitus? What does it mean? I'm like, that's cute.
I'm like, I don't know. Vigor's not here, so.
Right? So, also, it's good to note that he's got a Flynn-righted water poster in his bedroom, too, and if this is not a crush, then I don't know what is.
It's such a mood, Varian.
He is.
Yeah.
Crushing on both Eugene and Cassandra. That's just straight up how it is.
I just love that even after all this time, like, I feel like Varian never showed any ill will towards Eugene, and I'm like, yes, because if Eugene had done anything to him, he would have been absolutely devastated. He never would have redeemed himself. Because Eugene's his idol. I just was like, what if Varian and Edmund bond over the lost treasure of Scotia as well?
Oh my god,
He's so cute! Because he's also a big Flynn Rider fan. And
okay. Speaking of Edmund and the Lost Treasure of Scotia, I had a thought about this the other day, so this is totally tangential, and we'll get back on the episode in a second. But I know that people have been wondering, is he a fan of Flynn Rider because of Eugene's books, or, like, is that the only one he's read, or whatever?
Yeah.
But it occurs to me that he's the one who gave that speech about people think they're books that are just for kids, which means he's probably been a fan of the book since before Eugene left. And he's had conversations with people or tried to have conversations with people about the books in the Dark Kingdom. They're just like, Your Majesty, those are children's books. Why are you enjoying them so much? And he's just like, they're not just for kids. So, like, yeah, so my official headcanon is that he's always liked them, and that, I don't know, maybe he, like, made sure that Stitch had a copy of one of the books, you know?
Yeah, I was like, wait, what if he sent Eugene with a book? Like, that was a possession that he sent with him. He's like, here, for my baby boy, take this book. And the rando lady who just was like, here's an orphanage!
And they're also like, this is awfully strange. They love this child enough to bring him a book, which is really, really odd. Like, that book would be destroyed.
Oh my god. I just got such an interesting idea. I was like, okay, so what if he sent him with a book? And usually when kids are just dumped at orphanages, sometimes they have a thing from their parents that has, like, their name in it. Well, what if the book was, like, a used copy, and it had the name Eugene Fitzherbert in it?
Oh, that'd be interesting. Like,
isn't that... Like, that's where it got...
like some rando from the Dark Kingdom.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, this must be this baby's name. Well, that's unfortunate, but that's
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Okay. So suddenly
Okay,
Varian hears
stop
Kieran
thinking
call
about the
his
birthday.
name. Go cry, it's fine.
Yep.
So suddenly Varian hears Kieran call his name in alarm. When he finds his dad, Kieran is almost completely encased in the amber again. Panicking, Varian runs for him, but the room behind him fades away and is suddenly filled with the townspeople of Corona, calling him a traitor and telling him it serves him right for what he did, and this is what he deserves. All the while, the amber is covering Kieran, who calls out for his son. Have y'all, seen the storyboards that Kate submitted that were, way better than this?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the
So
storyboards are
beautiful.
so much better. I like them so much better because in the storyboards, Varian's working out his stuff, or Varian gets up in the morning. First of all, he gets up in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
and
He's got a little
he's got a hand crank and it automates his bed, and the little automations turn down his covers and bring him his slippers and comb his hair for him. First thing in the day morning.
so
And so
cute.
then he hears the call, and he goes running in, and Kieran is being encased in amber. And then as he runs forward, he touches the amber, and it grabs him and lifts him up, and they reach for each other, and they clasp hands. And just as they clasp hands, they're both completely encased. And then he wakes up. And I like that much better.
Yeah, I really loved Varian also getting encased because I'm like,
Yeah.
no, that's
That's a nightmare, man.
yeah.
Because think about it this way: if Varian also got encased, and part of the nightmare is that there's literally nothing he can do about it this time.
Mm-hmm.
He can't even ask for help this time. So so Kate, if you're listening, we like your storyboard better. So Varian bolts upright, having fallen asleep at his desk. It was all a nightmare. He hurries outside with Rudiger on his shoulders, and Kieran is there working, perfectly happy and healthy. He's got a wagon full of, not wagon, but wheelbarrow full of apples, which is callback to when they were apple orchards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But Rudiger is distressed. He noticed a cluster of glowing red rocks sprouting from the ground. They go to investigate them, and all Varian really has to say is, "Oh, this is new."
He's like,
That is the most blasé thing he has ever said ever in the history of the entire series. Oh, this is new. At Corona Castle, Lance is giving a tour. They are approaching their last stop, the north balcony. Although technically the last stop is the royal kitchen, but I lost kitchen privileges after last month's incident. Word of the wise, a meatball cannon may sound like a brilliant idea in theory, but in practice, well, it's a long story. Let's leave it there. Let's move on.
Oh, wait. I just realized, is that a Meet the Robinsons reference?
I wondered if that was. I mean, they have cannons, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe
Because
I had thought that maybe it's a Meet the Robinsons reference.
Because, oh gosh, I think Nathan wrote the story for that.
Oh, okay.
I could be wrong, but I feel like he wrote the story for that.
So the graphic
Also, oh, sorry, I just wanted to say that I'm like, so do multiple people give tours of the castle?
I was thinking,
Does
Castle's a
Eugene?
new thing?
Does Eugene give tours?
I would want to take his tour.
Yes. Also, yeah, I'm just
Now
like,
I'm picturing
cool.
Lance pulling out. Now I'm picturing Lance pulling out his tip jar again when he's doing the tour. He's like, "You want to tour guide?"
Oh my god. What if Edmund gives tours and he
Oh
just
my
opens
God.
doors and he's like, oh, this is
I
new.
don't know anything about this stuff.
This is new.
I've never gone through this store before. Who wants to go on an adventure?
He would though. Oh my
It's
god.
the dungeons.
Oh
Who
my
wants to be on
god.
the rack? Oh. So
And he
the ground
just
begins
talked
to
to him.
rumble. God, it'd be awesome. The ground begins.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
I keep
Give
tangenting.
us The ground begins to rumble as the glowing red rocks erupt towards the castle, breaking apart off the balcony, and an old man from the tour falls off, but Lance reaches for him and grabs him just in time. Okay, biceps, let's do this! He talks to his muscles. It's adorable.
Oh, so cute.
Lance can't manage to haul him up, but Rapunzel runs up and uses her hair as a safety blanket that they can fall into. She uses her hair to redirect the fall into a soft landing into some hay. Amidst cheers, Rapunzel tells the people that she's just doing her part. Eugene runs up to make sure everyone's okay, and Rapunzel confirms that they are, but turns her attention to the giant spikes now breaking the castle wall. She touches the rock and immediately pulls her hand away as though she saw or felt something, and very quietly wonders, Cassandra? Varian has headed into town, presumably to talk to Rapunzel about the new rocks, but he's been sidetracked by the fact that Rudiger has gone missing. He thinks he spots them on a rooftop and gives chase, but the furry critter keeps eluding him. While running, he nearly runs into Feldspar and that woman with a disgruntled baby from before ever after. Cue the fandom wondering if that baby doesn't age or if this is a new baby who looks just like their older sibling or what is up with this baby.
It was also funny because Feldspar was standing right next to that lady, and the baby is also ginger, and I was like, is that Feldspar's baby?
I kind of get the impression that Feldspar's not married.
Well, yeah.
I mean, you'd think we would have seen them standing next to each other before at some point.
It's true, but it just for like a brief second, I was like, is that Feldspar's baby?
That makes me wonder if that woman is not the braided girl's mom.
Yeah.
Since previously,
Also, if that was Feldspar's baby, then that's the closest we'd get to having Fitz babies,
Yep.
most likely.
There it is.
leave my baby.
Oh, man.
Feldspar asks Varian, "Don't you have a kingdom to overthrow or something?" And then refuses to answer when Varian asks if he's seen the raccoon. Then baby starts crying, so Varian slinks away. But
What
I
a
actually
sick
kind of
burn.
it is a sick burn, but I also really like that they addressed that the kingdom hasn't forgiven him as easily as Rapunzel has. I mean, I like a lot of people have even been asking about. They're like, "Oh, so what? So Corona's just forgiven Varian?" No, actually, they haven't. You know. As he's passing an alley, he thinks again that he's found Rudiger, but it turns out to be a mangy cat. But then he does find Rudiger, only Rudiger is frozen solid and glowing red like the rocks. Somewhere off screen, people start screaming. Outside of Monty's sweet shop, Max is gazing into the window at some candied apples when the red rocks spring up around him. Someone yells, "Stop, thief!" and Dwayne comes running by because Dwayne. Then Max tries to give chase. He finds out that all 4 of his hooves have been shackled and his feet won't leave the ground. Attila comes out with a tray of freshly baked croissants to find out what the hubbub is about, and the pastries spring off the tray with glowing eyes and sharp teeth and bat wings, and they tell him that he's burned them, so now they'll burn him. But when Max looks at Attila, he can't see what Attila sees. Similarly, when Lance runs up to settle Max down, he doesn't see Max's supposed shackles. Max breaks free and runs away, leaving Lance to wonder what if everyone's lost their minds. But then a giant spider with an evil clown head climbs over the cart that Max was pulling and demands that Lance sing. Lance runs away screaming. Rapunzel and Eugene are strolling through town assessing the new rocks. Lance runs by screaming that, "You can't make me sing in front of all these people!" And Rapunzel theorizes that the new rocks are making everyone see their worst fears. Eugene counters that he's not seeing anything, probably because there's not much that he's afraid of. But then he passes in front of a window and sees that he's got a cowlick, which wasn't existent on the real Eugene. So cue the Eugene dramatics. "Someone wake me up from this fresh misery!" Which,
God.
Acting.
Also,
I'm
I'm like, Eugene, you're afraid of snakes. We know this from Vigor the Visionary.
I think that he's like, but that's like a healthy fear. It's not like a phobia.
I know.
And like, there was hundreds of them. And he doesn't like, he also wrote on the map to Equus about how he doesn't like snakes. So we know that he doesn't like snakes, although I don't know if I'd call it straight up fear. But yeah.
Fair.
You're not wrong. But I also know that like, while the fandom kind of had a hissy fit about this, and while I, participated in said hissy fit, I will acknowledge that, it occurred to me on this watch through that if Eugene's fear had been something more dramatic, then he would not have been able to keep his head through the rest of the episode.
Yeah.
And so, like, we needed somebody with a level head in this episode, so Eugene had to have a minor fear. Eventually, like, he probably was imagining every time he walked by a mirror, he was seeing, like, cowlicks and frizziness everywhere, but he could handle that because he had to keep his head in the game. So, yeah. Good boy, Eugene.
Yep.
But just as Rapunzel calms him, saying that it's just in his head, Varian arrives with a very real petrified Rudiger. Varian explains that he's only been able to study the rocks for a few hours, but they seem to be extremely dangerous because if people are affected for too long, they become frozen in terror permanently. Pouring on the optimism, Rapunzel says that they need to find a way to turn these fearful frowns upside down and rearranges Rudiger's terrified grimace into a horrible semblance of a smile. Oops. Well, that's creepier. Her first attempt is to paint a warning sign to keep people away from the rocks. It's adorable, with Varian holding a terrified Eugene.
I was like, lots of people reblogged it, and liked it, but I was like, oh my gosh, look at Varian. He's being a great knight to his dark prince. I'm so proud. He's also being a fantastic #1 Flynn Rider fan.
He's
So
sure
proud.
is. So it's adorable with Varian holding a terrified Eugene, and Eugene asks, "Couldn't you have made us look, I don't know, a little more brave? I really wanted to get the point across. Besides, you're so cute when you're screaming in terror," and she squishes his cheeks, and it's so cute.
That's so cute, too, that
So
line. I'm
cute.
like, oh my god.
Also, it just goes to show, every time she manhandles him, he loves it. She pinches his cheek, she squishes his face, she boops his nose. Anytime. He loves
He's
it.
like, yes, please touch me more. Oh my god.
She grabs him by the front of the double and swings him around in a circle and dips him into a kiss. He loves that kind of stuff.
Cute.
Eugene asks why Rapunzel's not affected by the rocks, and she cheerfully guesses that it's because with Pascal by her side, she's not afraid of anything. Varian interrupts that he has an idea. In the castle, he explains that if he can sever a specific chain of rocks using one of his alchemical solutions, then they can cut off the red rock's fear power. They just need a cavern that runs deep enough. Rapunzel knows just the place to take him. One of the maids comes running in screaming, having visions of a moth-winged Crowley telling her that she had changed the linens. The maid backs herself into a cluster of rocks and then turns completely red, frozen. Rapunzel tells Varian that they have to act now before this happens to anyone else. As they prepare for the trip, we see that Varian has packed full bottles of the solution that he used to make the amber on the black rocks. It seems to upset him to be handling it again, but he is determined. Rapunzel tasks Lance and Eugene with keeping the people's spirits up and their minds off their fears. Lance assures her that they'll think of something before he sees the clown spider again and runs off in a panic. So Eugene promises that he'll think of something at least.
Eugene getting into that king role. I'm so proud of him.
It's a far, far different from when he went off to save parents on a snowy pass.
That's my dark prince.
In Herzerstein's booby-trapped tunnels, Varian keeps repeating, "No problem, we've got this." Rapunzel points out that she's been keeping track, and he said it 23 times, and has also drawn an adorable picture of a nervous Varian in her journal. Varian assures her that he's fine, but he's just trying not to set off the 3,000 traps down here. Directly after which Pascal sets off a trap by eating a bug, just like he did in The Alchemist Returns, because Pascal cannot keep his freaking tongue to himself. The trap opens a door under their feet, and most of Varian's supplies fall far, far from view and explode somewhere in the distance. Just as he falls in after them, Rapunzel catches him with her hair and hauls him back up. They only have one vial of his solution left, so Rapunzel says that they'll just have to make it count. And back in Corona, Eugene tells Lance that they're going to throw a talent show. While Lance questions this, Eugene explains that the production will be so entertaining that people won't remember to be scared. A scared boy runs by in one direction, running into Eugene in the process, and then Nigel runs in the other direction, screaming about dragons everywhere before succumbing to the red petrification. And our show is going to start now. In the tunnels, Rapunzel notices that Varian keeps hesitating, and she tells him that whatever the red rocks are showing him, they're just visions and not real. But he tells her that he's not seeing made-up things, he's seeing things that have actually happened. He tells her what the solution is and talks about he tells her what the solution is in the vials and talks about his guilt that because he's used it, he did terrible things. He fumbles the flask, but Pascal catches it with his tongue. Varian goes on to say that if it had smashed, Corona would have been done for, and that everyone would hate him even more than they already do now, not that he blames them. Rapunzel tells him not to be too hard on himself, and he counters that it's easy for her to say because she's the wondrous and magical Sundrop, but for ordinary people, fear is more debilitating. Varian, there is nothing ordinary about him.
Aww,
That's
so
so
sweet.
I was like, look at hands, and they walked off hand in hand, and it was so cute. God, I love that they're good friends now.
Buddy.
I love that Rapunzel has like so many like genuine friends now. Like, it's so good. It's so good. Back with Cassandra and the Enchanted Girl, Cassandra is questioning that she needs to destroy Rapunzel. Enchanted Girl tells her not to question it and that she must wield the power of the Sundrop and the Moonstone together, but she can't do that without destroying Rapunzel. Cassandra continues to be conflicted about this. Eugene is running as MC for Corona's first ever talent show. Act 1. Vladimir is painting the ceramic unicorns in a calm and soothing way, a la Bob Ross. Feldspar, spooked by the idea of unicorns, runs away. Act 2. Old Lady Crowley has a comedy act, but she's not funny and gets mad when no one laughs.
I laughed. I thought it was hilarious.
Act 3. Kiera and Catalina have an amazing wonder to show Corona. Just before Catalina transforms into her wolf form, Eugene realizes what they're going to do and utters a little, "Oh no." The transformation terrifies the already spooked townspeople, and they scatter before she can show them her soft shoe routine. Behind the curtain, Lance is tutoring Attila on how to sing properly, and while the thug has a gravelly off-key voice that is hard on the ears, Lance's voice is like velvet, and Eugene, who just witnessed the butcher be frozen by the rocks, knows that Lance's talent for singing has to go on next. Lance laughs in his face because, as you may recall, he's terrified of the idea of singing in front of a crowd. In the tunnels, the masonry is starting to crumble as the rocks continue to grow. Rapunzel and Varian cautiously make their way through, Varian questioning how much farther they need to go. Rapunzel informs him that they've arrived and shows him to the Demanitus chamber, where the Demanitus vice is still housed, though broken. Varian is extremely impressed, and Rapunzel tells him that he should have seen it before all the red rocks. He goes on to say how much he would have loved to have met Demanitus, to which Rapunzel replies, I did. Nice guy. He was a monkey. Long story.
She was so nonchalant about
He
it.
was. I love
He's a
it.
monkey.
He was
No
a
big
monkey.
deal. And Varian's like, I'm sorry?
The expression is so like, excuse me?
Yeah.
I love it. It's so great. Varian tries to explain what the amber should do, but the rocks are growing, and Rapunzel tells him that they need to act now. Unleashing her hair, Rapunzel secures it around Varian so he can get close enough to the rocks to pour the solution on them. Varian is still seeing visions of Kieran, begging for his help, and he has to fight past them to stay on task. He pours most of the solution on the nearest red rock, and nothing happens. It just absorbs right into it. Realizing that the changing of the rocks from black to red must have changed their chemical makeup, so his solution no longer works on them. Fortunately, there's still some solution left in the flask and one black rock left in the chamber, but they have to climb to it. Backstage at the talent show, the clown spider is taunting Lance that it's time to sing in front of all these people, and they're waiting on him. But when Lance peers out into the audience, he sees Eugene, calling out to him and cheering him on, saying he believes in him. This bolsters Lance's confidence, and he turns on the clown spider, saying, I'm bigger than you, I'm bigger than you, I'm bigger than my fears. The clown spider shrinks down small and cowers in fear from Lance's confidence, and Lance strolls out on stage.
Can I
Eugene-
just say, Eugene is being the best brother ever.
He is!
Just
He
cheering on his
It's
brother. He's like,
amazing.
you can do it, broski.
Here's the thing. Here's the amazing stuff, though. If you look at their interactions through, like, seasons 1 and 2, like, Eugene will frequently say things such as, like, Lance, you're a genius, and that's the first and last time I'm ever going to say that. And now he's like, no, man, I believe in you. You're great at life. It's so great. I love it. Like, he understands the difference between, like, now is not the time, you know?
Yeah.
It's great. So Eugene hits the spotlight, and then Lance sings a bopping solo about facing your fears.
It's so good.
Seriously? How does this series keep pouring out the inspirational songs? It is so great. Plus, Lance's interactions with Kiera and Catalina are, like, adorable. It's, like, all I've ever wanted with them. And he makes Old Lady Crowley smile and boogie down, which is, like, who made her smile other than herself? Like, it's amazing. So the crowd cheers, and Eugene looks on with pride.
His little smile is the cutest thing ever, and I can't
Yes!
get over it.
Rapunzel and Varian climb up the Demanitus device to reach the single black rock. Varian slips and Rapunzel catches him with her hair, but once they're level with each other, he says that it's no use. He can't do this. She tells him that he cannot let fear run his life. She confesses to him that she's seen Cassandra destroy the kingdom with the black rocks, and that her worst fear is that she'll lose Cassandra as a friend forever. And then with this bomb-ass animation of Cass standing there with her hair blowing in the wind, back with red smoke and embers flying, it's like, dang, that was a good, like, 5-second clip.
That was for
Holy.
the lesbians.
That was
That was specifically for them.
the lesbians and the animation aficionados. That's what
Yes.
that was for.
Yep.
Rapunzel notices how she and Varian both have trouble talking about what scares them. But the cavern is crumbling faster, and the red rocks are growing, and they have to get to that one black rock. So Varian says he'll do it and requests a lift. Rapunzel halts him back up to the device and tells him to hurry. The rocks are closing in as Varian climbs, and Rapunzel is being backed away towards the edge of the platform she's on. She braces against the rocks coming at her. Just as, miles away, Cassandra puts her hand on one of the red rocks. They sense each other through them, and then Cassandra narrows her eyes, and suddenly the redness is spreading to Rapunzel's arms. She calls out for Varian, who is still climbing, but now he's beginning to be overtaken too. He reminds himself that it's not real, that he can do this, and it staves off the redness enough for him to keep moving. He reaches the black rock, which is also beginning to be overcome by the redness, and he is fighting this petrification as he tries to pour, but he drops the flask. However, he manages to catch it on his foot, and through the audio hallucination of Kieran calling for him, he kicks the flask up to where he can grab it. Fighting fear all the way, he finally manages to pour the last remaining drops of the solution onto the last remaining of the black rock. The amber bursts forth and begins to rapidly spread all over the red rocks, freeing Varian and Rapunzel from their control. The redness of the rocks fades away, turning them black again. Safely at ground level, Rapunzel hugs Varian and tells him that he tackled his fears and she knew he had it in him. In town, the new red rocks are sinking back into the ground, and everyone who has been petrified by them is free once more. Eugene cheers that they did it, and the crowd turns to the stage, cheering and applauding, and Crowley comments, "So did you, Lance." And has she ever called anybody by their name before? Like, I think she called Feldspar by his first name once, for a day, but other than that, she just slings out insults constantly. She doesn't actually call people by their names, and it's kind of amazing. So Lance realizes that they absolutely loved him on stage and he has no need to be afraid to perform anymore. Good. Sing more, Lance.
Yep.
Yes.
Back in the Glen, Cassandra is desperately trying to get her last red rock to stay, but it and the other black rocks that shot up at the beginning sink back into the ground and Cass sinks to her knees. Enchanted Girl tells her that Rapunzel can strip her of her power and that if she doesn't destroy Rapunzel, then Rapunzel will destroy her. Alarmed by this, Cassandra gets to her feet and once again steals herself. Back in town, Varian is strolling along with Kieran, telling him all that happened, when Rudiger comes bounding up. As Varian lifts him with glee, Feldspar approaches to tell him nice job with the rocks and that Rapunzel says he's a real hero. In the castle, Rapunzel and Eugene are on their balcony, where Rapunzel has just explained that the red rocks were Cass's doing. He is shocked that Cass would attack Corona, but Rapunzel explains that she wasn't attacking Corona, she was just afraid. She tells him how she could sense Cass through the rocks and that there's still a chance to save her. The two hold hands, gazing out to sea, very reminiscent of the movie, when Ariana and Frederick first open the doors and they find Rapunzel and Eugene standing on the balcony holding hands and looking out, and that is the end of the episode.
Yay.
Yay.
And then we go into the cheerful tune that probably was not appropriate for the end of that
Da-da-da,
episode.
da-da-da-da-da.
I love how we like turned that into a meme, and now season 3 just keeps doing it.
Right.
So, guys,
We're going back.
that is the season 3 first bomb, all the way up through Be Very Afraid. That is our 5th podcast in 2 weeks, and so we're gonna go on break too. But we are so glad that you joined us for all of this, and we are grateful for all of your encouragement. And maybe I will have a voice tomorrow, and maybe I won't. We'll see. And we love you guys, and thanks for sticking with us. And we will let you know when the next one comes out, like we always do, especially if you're, subscribed to us, and it's kind of obvious. But thanks for joining us once again, and we will talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.